Now we're going to look at forms in HTML5. And if you look back to the forms example I had in the basic HTML, the basic web programming section, you can see that if you compare these two, you can see that there's been a lot of changes and advancements in HTML5. So I'm going to walk you through the different advancements for HTML5 and forms. First, I'm going to show what this page actually does, and then I'll show you the code. And as you can see, I use a little bit of JavaScript to make some things happen, but the graphical changes and the number of different input elements has increased drastically. Also, there are now built-in ways to validate. Usually it's a very security issue. When you're allowing users to send information from a form to your web server, you have to analyze the data that's coming in and see if it's in the proper format, if it's a number, if it's a string, if it's just text, if it's a date, and so forth, and make sure they're not trying to send a script and do some type of cross-site scripting and evil things. And so this stuff is built in. So I'm going to walk you through this, and I'll show you all these things. The first thing I can talk about is content editable. There is a parameter you can put on the different elements, or an attribute rather, so that you can say that the content of that page is editable. So you can say, which sport do you do? And I allowed this to change. We'll say soccer or baseball or basketball. And then when I refresh the page here, we see that my changes, I've edited the content that was here before. It was nothing, was undefined, and now it says my choices. I can change it to swimming. I'll do a refresh. And so we have soccer and swimming. So you can see that you can set anything you want to be content editable so that the user can actually change what is due. And what you can do is to make these things savable. You can store them in local storage and so forth. I'll move on. These first two boxes are just names, but I'm just going to do something like this, just add some stuff. And if I push submit, you see that one of these pops up. You'll probably encounter these many times when you're filling out forms, that there's some type of feedback to the user as to you forgot to input something, or you input it in the wrong format, and so forth. But now, as you see, all these are built in to into the HTML standard, so that you don't have to do this coding yourself. And so if I were to take away, for example, and basically what I've said is that certain of these fields are required. So I'll fill in some stuff here. I'll just pick, I'll say favorite movie, whatever. I'm not going to bother. Password we've seen before. This, once again, all these have existed before. But now we can choose a file. I'll just pick something here. Some PDF. Email. And I'm just going to say this. If I do submit, it's going to say, besides just seeing if it's required or not, it says please include an @ in the email. It's telling me that what I've entered is not a valid email address. Oh. And I'll do something gmail.com. Number, this one is also new. We can count up and down. Here we have a slider. So I can do numbers, also new. We have a date, which you've also encountered, but now it's built in. Before you had to do these types of things in JavaScript, but now we can do a date using the graphical interface. Oh, this one's complaining I haven't done an URL. And then I'll do submit. And this one's complaining that I've said that this is pattern matching that we can also do in validation in the form. So I said it has to be 3 letters and 3 numbers. And then it sent everything. And I was very lazy. I'll show you it once again, as I did in the PHP example before. Here I'm doing the lazy way of PHP coding, which is very unsafe, but I'll show you it shortly. I just printed out all the choices that we had made, just for educational purposes to show. And we also see the progress bar. Oh, and I forgot this one. You could do a color. And it pops up the color chooser for your operating system. In my case, I'm working on a Apple computer, a Mac. So it pops up like this. But it would look different depending on if you're on a PC or a Unix environment or so forth. And obviously, all these different validations, how they appear, if you test this form in different web browsers, it'll appear differently. So if you wanted something that appeared the same to all users, you would still have to hand roll or do it yourself. So now we're going to look at the code and see what these different things are named and how the code looks. And then once again, you're going to test and work with this yourself. But there's lots of stuff to test and do here in the form. There's the PHP code that I sent all the values from the form. And this is very unsafe, but actually I just printed the post, all the stuff in the post as an array. I printed it out just so you could see it. In reality, you would do something a little more complicated. I have a little JavaScript I use to make that progress bar tick and move, as you saw, to make this thing move. And a little JavaScript to read some of these things. And of course, to store in the content editable, as I did up here. I'll show you that quickly. Here is a little increment. That's just making that progress bar move, so you can see what it does. And it starts the progress bar. And here is when I store the data from what we've written, or what the user has written in for that select list, for the checkboxes. And here I put the information that's stored in the storage into the boxes. So I allow the user basically to change. And here we come to the actual form. And we can see it sends the information to test PHP, how it sends its post. Once again, this all stuff is normal. And we're going to just look at the new things. An input, once again, text. The first two were text boxes for the first name and last name. But you see the things that are different. Autofocus, required, means that it's required. There has to be some kind of information, and that's what happened when I didn't have the information. If I took these away, it gives me this. And this is what's happened when I have required. Also, this we see grayed out, this your first name. That is the placeholder we see here. Whatever you write here is shown, a little grayed out. So it's helping the user, giving them some type of clue as to what they're supposed to do in that field, besides the actual label. And here's the content editable. I create a section that contains those checkboxes. And all you do is there's an attribute that says content editable, true. And so the user is allowed to change the content. And then once again, on blur, that means when you leave this section in JavaScript, I execute an event, and then I do that JavaScripty stuff to store that data. See the radio boxes? Nothing new there, but their gender. And then we have a normal input box for movie text. And then the quote, I allow multiple, where's the quote? Rows, whoops. And a placeholder for that one as well. Password, it was just required, and we've seen that before. It's where it hides the actual letters or numbers that you were typing. Apparently the hamburger and hot dog part was also content editable. You can test that. The input of the file is just type file, where you can allow them to upload a file, as I had done here. That's new. And some more new types here. The type of email and URL. Because the advancement of HTML5, we know that users frequently want to send and add in forms, emails, and web addresses. And so they are now officially a part of, they're just as common as text boxes or checkboxes and so forth. And the good thing with that is that by setting it required, it gives us that feedback as it did when I didn't enter. If I go back here and do some stuff, when I didn't enter do this one, a proper email, it gives us that feedback that we wanted. Please fill out this field, and then even if I enter it, please include an @ sign and a dot, and so forth, which is really nice. URL, same thing. It requires you have HTTP and the colon and the 2 slashes. This one, type number, is the one that gives us a slide bar with a number. Type range is the one that gives us a range of numbers. And here I set it from 11 to 1000, so that's also nice. So we can force the user to only enter numbers, so they don't send us letters where we want numbers sent. And then here, the type date, that's what we saw, this one. And of course, this one will appear differently depending on the operating system you're using in the browser. It'll pop up some graphical interface for the date. Makes it a lot easier. And then I have for the Swedish car registration number, you can use regular expressions and patterns that can be matched. That's beyond the scope of this course, but I basically provide a little information there. But you can see this becomes very powerful if you're going to enter some type of number that has a pattern that needs to be strictly followed. And then we have the input type color. That's pretty much self-explanatory. That was this one. It shows the color. And then we have input type, the progress bar. It's called progress, and that's this one. You can use it to give the user some type of feedback as to something is taking place and they need to wait, of course. And then the final was the input button submit, which sends all this post data to the web server, as we've seen before. So here you have quite a few things to test and explore. Try to build a little more advanced more advanced form. Test all the new dates and URLs and emails and colors and all these type of ranges and number inputs, and as well as the validation, and test them in different web browsers and operating systems if you have access to different operating systems, and see the difference. Okay, time to test out form.